Hello, this is AstrologerCoach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming full moon in 11 degrees of Gemini, which will be exact on December 3rd at 10:46 a.m. East Coast time in the US and 7:46 a.m. Pacific time in the US, which is also LA time. Now, all full moons offer us an opportunity to see things in a new light. We have more awareness of how far we've come since the new moon. And so full moons really guide us towards a balance and integration rather than polarization and division. So it's really a time where we illuminate the truth of things, where we see how far we've come, and it also shows us the consequences of our choices that we've made this far. And so in this spirit, I will make some exciting announcements towards the end of this video, so stay tuned. But first, let's talk a little bit about this full moon and what it's all about. So first of all, it's another super full moon, and this one will be the last one this year. And supermoons occur when the moon is either full or new, but it's closer to the Earth than normal. So the distance is closer, and therefore the pulls, the magnetic and energetic pulls of the full moon are stronger, and the moon is more powerful. So this often means an increase in the intensity of our emotional reactions, and it's also coupled with greater awareness, though, because we are able to see things more fully, more clearly around the issues that are connected to this full moon energy. So in this case, it will be the polarity between Sagittarius and Gemini, right? Because the sun and the moon oppose each other in Sagittarius, Gemini. So we seek balance and integration around those two poles. And so let's take a closer look at both of these energies. So Sagittarius repoints us from facts and learned knowledge to life experiences and the wisdom that we gained through those life experiences. And Sagittarius is much more interested in the bigger picture of things and about truth of life. Now, Gemini, on the other hand, wants us to stay connected to our immediate environment, to our communities, and to our day-to-day mind. So anything connected to the mental processing or sharing of information as fast as possible, as much as possible, that's what Gemini is interested in. So Gemini really loves the spoken and written word. You could also say the thoughts are also part of that as well, right? Before we say something or before we write something down, right? Now we're being asked to integrate the Gemini mind energy, which is connected to information and also partially our conditioning, our mental conditioning, with the wisdom energy that comes from life's experiences and the quest for a larger truth or like a bigger understanding, which is more connected to the Sagittarian energy. Now, several hours before the full moon becomes exact, Mercury, which is the ruler of Gemini, so it's the ruler of this full moon, will come to a halt in 29 degrees of Sagittarius because it's going to start its 3-week retrograde phase. And as this happens, the energy will be more exalted, the Mercury energy will be more exalted, but it's also going to be turned inwards already at the time of the full moon because it's already retrograde at that point. So what that means is that our communications, our sharing, our processing of information, which is all related to the Mercury energy, will feel internally more heightened. So inside of ourselves, we will feel this very strong sense of like thinking and wanting to share and wanting to process stuff. But it's going to feel much stronger internally than we're able to actually connect it to the outside world. So there will be sort of like a little bit of a disconnect maybe between what's inside and what's outside. We have an opportunity with this Mercury retrograde to review and rewrite all of the stories that we tell ourselves about life, about intimate relationships, financial partnerships, and what we believe to be true like the larger truth of things on the whole about things, our philosophies or our thoughts about, what's life all about, why are we here, what are we doing, all those things, right? So ask yourself with this full moon for the next 14 days, what do I merely think and what do I really know in those areas of my life, right? And then what gets through the filters, right? Because we all have our filters, right? That we see life through. It's like the lens that we see life through because of how we were brought up, where we were brought up, or, the society that we belong to, and how we see life, whether that's through our gender, religious beliefs, or philosophies that we have. There's certain filters that we all have in place. So what are those filters? What gets through those filters? And what maybe doesn't get through those filters, right? Like what gets held back because we have these filters in place? And what might be possible if I simply expanded my view, expanded it beyond what these filters are for me personally, right? Now, all these questions from this video are also available on my website at astrologercoach.com via my weekly forecasts page after November 26th. And you can also sign up to receive these weekly forecasts via email in the future if you just email us to info@astrologercoach.com and just write weekly forecasts in the subject line. All right? And then my assistant will add you to that mailing list. Now, back to the full moon in Gemini. Now, Mercury, which is the ruler of Gemini, of course, also aligns with Saturn in Sagittarius and squares Chiron in Pisces at the time of the full moon. So what does that mean? Now, the alignment with Saturn calls on us to make very mature and responsible choices around the search for higher meaning and to take responsibility for our attitudes and limiting beliefs that we've connected with up until now. And limiting beliefs is anything that is like a thought that we've been thinking over and over and over in our lives that has not supported us in exploring or experiencing life with an open heart or an open mind, right? So if it's not helping us to learn about life or to learn about ourselves, or if it's not helping us to stay open no matter what life represents to us, then that's a limiting belief, right? So you can kind of gauge it in that way. So questions you can ask yourself for the next 2 weeks: what guides my choices? How do I make my choices in life? And what do I learn about life every day just by living it? What are some things that I learn about life just by living it? Not from what I've already learned through, my upbringing and through my peers or through my teachers, but what do I just learn from life by living it? And how does the experience of my current reality inform what I believe about life? So what does my experience that I currently have inform what I believe about life? And what is the best way to handle foreign affairs? And the reason why I wrote foreign affairs is because anything that's not familiar to us is a foreign affair, right? Anything that's different from how we typically do our day-to-day thing, right? That's a foreign affair. But then there's also foreign affairs in other countries, in other places, how we connect to what's out there in the world. Those are foreign affairs as well, right? So what's the best way to handle foreign affairs, right? So just kind of contemplate on that, and maybe you can journal on that or meditate on that. And just remember, you don't have to use all the questions from my videos in your meditations or in your journaling, or just in terms of also just contemplating about them. Just use whatever resonates most with you, because there are a lot of questions, so not everything needs to be put into the pot, right? But it's just to support you to kind of get a sense on how to move with these energies for the next 2 weeks. Now, Saturn will change signs from Sagittarius to Capricorn on December 19th. And I will be taking a look at this in more detail in my next monthly forecasting forum. So if you've been thinking about joining us on December 6th for the next forum, feel free to register on my website or stay tuned for more information about the forums. We'll talk a little bit more about those towards the end of the video. All right. Now, Mercury's involvement in the Saturn Chiron square, right? So Mercury is also squaring Chiron, not just Saturn as it's been for most of this year. So Mercury's joining that square, and this brings a more rational dimension to this aspect of this square. So it's giving us the opportunity to ask some questions here. So what beliefs about life keep me stuck in my inner wounded child? So there's certain beliefs that we might have that we're now needing to take a closer look at because they might be keeping you stuck in your inner wounded child. And what if I took responsibility for those wounds and insecurities? And when I say taking responsibility, I don't mean, take blame for them. What I really just mean is just acknowledge them as being yours, just owning them and saying, yes, these are my wounds and these are my insecurities, and I own that because this is partially of what I've experienced growing up as a child, and my inner child has felt that separation or has felt that wounding growing up. And so, yes, I own that that's mine. And then, do the stories I tell myself about life open my heart and my mind? Again, this is a very, very powerful question, right? Because anything that's not opening up your heart and your mind that you tell yourself is probably not so helpful for you to carry around with you, right? Those are those limiting beliefs. And then another thing you can ask yourself, these stories that you tell yourself, do they make me more loving or more fearful? So that's another sort of layer to that. It's the same question in a sense, just another layer to that. Do these stories that you tell yourself about life, do they make you more loving or more fearful? And that's very powerful to just be conscious about, because anything that makes me more fearful that I tell myself about life, that's going to have a huge impact on how I experience life and how I live it. Now, also ask yourself, these stories, do they enrich my life or do they narrow it? Again, another layer. It's just the same question with another layer. Do these stories enrich my life or do they narrow it? And what if I rewrote these stories that have left me feeling separate and insecure? Right? What if I rewrote my stories? Chiron is exalted at the time of the full moon. So that means that we're getting ready for something here, because Chiron will start to move out of its retrograde phase. It will start to go direct again just a couple of days after the full moon becomes exact. And so this really adds another layer of vulnerability around our wounding. We're just more, it's going to be more in our face. We're going to be more conscious of that at the time of the full moon. So what if a compassionate approach to my inner healing process actually benefited me and others? That is a very, very powerful question to ask with this Chiron station. And if you like, feel free to watch that 15-minute excerpt that I have from my most recent forum where we talked about the Neptune and Chiron stations in relationship to our birth charts. That's available for free on YouTube or on my website via my astrology videos. But you can also buy the whole webinar, the whole 90-some plus minutes of that webinar on my services page as well, if you want to have the whole thing. Now, Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius and is currently in Scorpio and is making a trine to Neptune in Pisces and a quincunx to the moon in Gemini. So what does all of that? What does all of this mean? Now, Jupiter's trine to Neptune provides a nice support for the releasing of old patterns, beliefs and behaviors that we have developed to protect ourselves from resurfacing old traumas, right? So that we don't want any kind of old traumas to come back. So we protect ourselves, we kind of like block ourselves off. But Neptune is actually giving us the opportunity to see it with more loving and kind eyes, and to be able to release some of that needing to protect, some of that fear that we have around these old traumas. Similar to what we've already experienced in the last new moon that I talked about several weeks ago. Now, what might be possible for those old traumas if I brought a good dose of self-compassion and a dust of trust in my own inner divinity to their transformation? And I love that dust of trust, because, it's like sometimes, that's enough, just if we can just put a little bit of trust into the mix, kind of like a meal when we're cooking and we're adding self-compassion, we're adding just a tiny bit of trust, and we're adding, a little bit of like air and openness, and we're letting it steam, so that way the transformation, the cooking can take place, right? Now, another question you can ask yourself here: how might my perspective shift if I allowed my heart to open towards life? And Neptune is all about the heart, so it's all about just allowing our heart to open up towards life, right? And shifting our perspective a little bit. Now, feel free to also watch my Jupiter in Scorpio webinar for more insight on that energy. There, I have a 30-minute excerpt on that for free on YouTube or on my website via the astrology videos, or you can also purchase the entire webinar, which again is a 90-minute plus webinar on my online courses page on my website. And I will have links to all of that also below the video, so you don't have to search for it, you just click on the link. Now, Jupiter's quincunx to the moon brings some inner discomfort. And any quincunx, that's always a place of inner adjustment. Something's kind of like not quite working, it's not quite in alignment with each other, so we need to make some inner adjustments. And we're not always necessarily sure how to do that. So you can ask yourself here, what if it were possible to connect on a deep emotional level and share my highest truth authentically with fast, rational mental exchanges, right? So how can we kind of make that work? On the one level is that Jupiter in Scorpio, that needing to go deeper on an emotional level, right? And sharing our highest truth authentically. And then on the other side is that moon in Gemini, which is all about fast, rational mental exchanges. Let's talk, let's think, and because, of course, Mercury is retrograde already, there's a lot of that on an internal level that's happening. So we're really feeling that discrepancy between the two energies, right? We're feeling this sense of like emotional depth and needing to connect there, and then all this mental stuff and wanting to move fast, right? So, it's really important to allow yourself to be comfortable with the discomfort there, and just see if you can take a deep breath and allow yourself to be with the emotional and the mental at the same time. Now, this full moon chart also has a T-square to Neptune in Pisces, and is making Neptune the focal point of that T-square. So Neptune is basically squaring the moon in Gemini and the sun in Sagittarius. And so this T-square asks us to stretch and grow. We're really needing to release anything that no longer supports our growth individually and collectively. Now, the empty leg of that T-square, so very often when there's a T-square, there's an empty leg opposite the focus point, and that empty leg lands in Virgo. So we're really invited to create daily routines that support our connection to our inner divinity, right? That Neptune placement. So ask yourself here, could I make some time for silence, for surrender and self-reflection? Could I make some time every day, just a little bit every day, right? rather than coming from a place of good or bad or right or wrong, ask yourself, what do I see when I look at this through a neutral lens? Whatever is occurring in our lives, there's going to be a lot of energy moving about. Can I see all of this through a neutral lens? And could I try being kind, heart-centered, and clear mind energy, right? A clear mind at the same time. Can I connect those two poles? And, with so many planets in mutable signs right now with this full moon, which is, Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, right? All of these mutable signs. We might feel a little bit restless and pulled in many directions. We feel like we're moving in a lot of different directions. And it's all definitely keeping us busy for sure, especially on a mental level. But it could also bring up feelings of being ungrounded and overwhelmed, right? That Neptune being that focus point could stir up some anxiety or some overwhelm, right? And so you want to ask yourself for the next 2 weeks, am I feeling overwhelmed? Just say it outright. Like if you're feeling somehow the energy moving too fast or the energy feeling a little bit spastic inside of you, just ask yourself, am I feeling overwhelmed? And if you are, then ask yourself, could I allow myself to be present and listen to what's inside of me beyond the mind, beyond all external noise? And that's, I think, going to be very, very helpful and very powerful to ask yourself for the next 2 weeks. And then could I trust the subtle messages of my intuitive self? Because remember, our intuitive self is very subtle. It's not as loud as the mind. The mind tends to be very loud and very noisy. But our intuition, which comes more from a more sensing place, from a more visceral place, the body, the emotional, the physical body, that's connected to our intuitive self. Like, these messages are going to be a lot more subtle than the mind constantly going like blah 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 blah, right? And we're so trained to listen to the mind more so than we're trained to listen to our intuitive selves, right? So could you trust the subtle messages of your intuitive self and listen, listen carefully to those subtle messages? Now, following our inner guidance on a daily basis is definitely going to be very, very important for the next 2 weeks, as is releasing any victim-based or wishful thinking. Anything connected on a lower vibration to that Neptune in Pisces, we want to release it. We want to let it go. And so the best way to notice victim mentality, for example, because it's not always something that we're aware of, is simply to catch ourselves when we blame others or life for our current circumstances or our current experiences, right? So if you have anything happening in your life that feels like a no, like I don't want this and this is not what's, if you start to blame external forces for what's happening, then you know that you're in a victim mentality in that moment. And if you catch yourself doing this, just acknowledge it gently and be kind to yourself, right? Just say, wow, okay, I'm in a victim mentality right now. And can I let this be okay just for right now that I'm experiencing this, that I'm feeling this? And even watch and see what other feelings are coming up for you as you're acknowledging that, because you might acknowledge it and feel really bad about it, or you might feel disgusted, or you might feel scared even, that's even there. So just allow yourself to feel what's coming up as you're acknowledging this gently with yourself. And just know that you're human, having this impulse or this tendency to want to blame others or life for what's currently going on in our lives is very human, because it's sometimes difficult to take responsibility. It's sometimes hard to acknowledge what's really going on in our lives, this wishful thinking that everything is always wonderful and everything is always ideal, that really gets us into trouble sometimes. But again, it is human to do it, right? Because it feels better, right? Now, as best as you can for the next 2 weeks, take breaks or at least slow down a little bit, allow your mind to relax. It's important to explore ways to stay connected with your inner divinity. So seek tools or people or anything or whatever you have already available to you that can help you with that exploration. So any form of like meditation, music or sound therapy, walk in nature, breathing exercises, or simply practicing being present in the here and now. All of that can be of huge support, right? Also doing some kind of creative work or something that helps you get connected with your feeling body, with your physical body, just help you be grounded in the here and now. Healthy health routines, so you can feel more engaged with a healthy self, right? If you can manage even a little bit of all of that on a daily basis, it's going to be extremely helpful. It doesn't have to be all of it, just some of it. If you can manage that, that would be very helpful. Now, for this full moon in the next 2 weeks, you could ask yourself, am I ready to let go of what I would like to be true? So basically all that whole wishing it to be true, right? Could I be ready to let go of what I would like to be true? And what is fact and what is fiction? And this is also really important for us to explore, because very often we just take for granted that everything, every noise that we hear in our heads or outside of our heads is just true. Things that we watch online or on TV or things that other people tell us. We just go, oh yeah, it must be true because this person is saying it, But is it really true? Or, any kind of thought that comes up in your mind several times and it's a familiar thought and you go, oh yeah, it has to be true because, I've thought it many, many times, so it must be true. But is it? Is it really true? So ask yourself, what is fact and what is fiction? And what is truth? And does it exist? What it really is truth? Because truth, sometimes, people say like, this is the truth, but then 100 years later, we go, no, that wasn't true at all. Or sometimes even just 10 years later or 5 years later, that wasn't true at all, right? So what is truth? Is truth something that actually can change? Can truth change? And if truth can change, is it still truth, right? So we kind of need to investigate for ourselves a little bit, what do we say is truth and is it really truth, right? Now, one thing that's also really important is that you want to kind of get aware with this full moon that your consciousness, your love, your light, that all of that makes a difference. Not only to those of you that live with you or to yourself, but to the world. Every little bit of consciousness, every little bit of love, every little bit of shedding light to a dark issue or to something that has been unconscious makes a difference to the whole world. And so we need to own that each one of us has such a tremendous impact. It's like each drop that drops into the body of water, into the ocean, it creates this ripple effect. It has impact, right? And each one of us has that impact. Now, if you have an ascendant, a career point, or personal planets in 9 to 13 degrees of Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, or Pisces, then this full moon is definitely going to has more impact on you than on others. But even if you don't have personal planets in those degrees and signs, I want to just invite you to take a look at your own birth chart and see what houses are affected by this full moon, because that's going to show you a lot about how this full moon is going to impact you personally, right? So take a look at your birth chart and just look to see where does 11 degrees of Gemini and Sagittarius land in your birth chart? Where is that degree in those signs in your birth chart? And those areas, those houses, what do they mean? what do they stand for? Like, what areas are they in your life? And how can you integrate or find the balance between those two areas of your life, right? Now, if you don't have a birth chart or you don't know how to do what I just described, feel free to watch my video, How to Read Your Birth Chart. It's available for free on YouTube, or you can also request it from us via info@astrologercoach.com and just write recording in the subject line, and we'll send you that recording with some handouts. And at the end of that video, I will let you know how to get a visual of your birth chart for free online. So definitely watch it all the way through the end if you don't have a birth chart yet. And it's also a fantastic video to watch if you would like to join our monthly forecasting forums and haven't done so yet. So that's a great video to definitely get ready for watching the monthly forecasting forum. And before I talk in more detail about these forums, I would also like to make an exciting announcement about my business and what's coming up at the end of this year or beginning of next year. I'm not sure exactly when, but I am in the process of creating an amazing online community for all of those who love astrology, or for those of you who simply want to explore themselves on a deeper level and live life more consciously, more authentically. And so this is really exciting because we're going to be launching this whole new website that will bring all of us together and will make things more easier for you to tap into all of what I have to share all the time. So this is coming soon, even though I don't have a launch date yet, but hopefully I will have one soon, and I will make that announcement via my newsletter. But with this new website will also come an increase of some of my prices and my fees for my readings, for my online astrology courses, for my monthly forecasting forums, and for my coaching and healing sessions. So if you want to stock up and you want to take advantage of the prices as they are right now, feel free to do so. Get whatever you think you might want for the next year. I will honor all of my services that are being purchased right now for a whole year rather than my usual 6 months. So any services that you purchase will not expire in 6 months. They will expire in a year from now. So that's what's available. So go to my website right now and just see what's available, what you'd like to get for yourself for the next year. And just think of it as an investment in yourself and in your personal growth, right? Because a lot of the time, these types of things can really support us and help us big time. Now, let's talk about the monthly forecasting forums. For those of you who haven't done them yet, or for those of you who would like to hear a little bit more about this, basically I created these monthly forecasting forums to have some extra support for all of you who want to know how to apply some of what I talk about in my videos with your natal birth charts, right? So it's really the next best thing to getting a one-on-one reading with me, just that it's much more affordable. And it's also sort of like a community of people that come together and connect and ask questions. And we kind of like learn from each other in a sense, right? We're learning from other people's questions just as much as we learn from our own questions. And so this is a really fantastic format. So if you haven't done it yet, I would recommend to check it out. We always cover what's coming up each month, and we applied it to our own birth charts. So with this next forum that's coming up on December 6th, we're going to take a look at Saturn, because Saturn will be changing signs from Sagittarius to Capricorn on December 19th, and will stay in this sign, in its own sign, until December 2020. So, woohoo, that's a long time. So we'll definitely be looking at that in more detail in terms of where that is in our birth charts, all the houses, and what that really means, and what it means for us individually, collectively, and so on. So if you want to know how this is going to impact you personally, feel free to join us on Wednesday, December 6th at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time, which is also New York time, and 9 p.m. London time. So you can sign up for these webinars live, or you can register to receive an MP4 video presentation within 24 hours of the live event. Both of that is super valuable. If you can't make it on that day or that time, definitely feel free to get that video presentation, because that's just as valuable, because you can ask questions in advance. So register now at astrologercoach.com if you want to do this, if that resonates with you. And please make sure to also fill out the registration form at the very bottom of the monthly forecasting form page, as well as making your payment. The payment is still only $24 for the 90-minute webinar. And sometimes we even do more than 90 minutes. So that's very, very affordable. And again, you get to ask your own questions, and it will always make sure that I can answer as many as possible within the time frame that we have together, okay? So again, all the questions from this video are also available on my website at astrologercoach.com via my weekly forecasts after November 26th. And you can also sign up to receive the weekly forecasts via email in the future if you email us at info@astrologercoach.com and write weekly forecast in the subject line. And if you don't want to receive emails every week, but you want to be in touch with me in terms of my videos and special offers and announcements that I have about my business or online courses or retreats or anything like that, then feel free to sign up for my newsletter and just send an email to the same email address, info@astrologercoach.com, and just write newsletter in the subject line. All right? So this is it for the full moon. Have a fantastic time. Remember, it's an extroverted time. It's a time where we're sort of like connecting with other people and connecting with different sides inside of ourselves. And if you have any questions about the full moon or anything in general for astrology, you can definitely email me and ask me questions. However, if it's a personal question, I will ask you to book a reading with me because I will have to pull up your birth chart, and that will just to honor my time and to make sure that I can answer your question more fully as well, right? Now, if you have questions that are connected to the next 30 days or anything connected to the Saturn and Capricorn energy, then definitely, ask those questions during the monthly forecasting forum, and I will answer them there. All right? So have a good one. This is Astrologer Coach Sonja Francis. Goodbye.